Hi there guys, it's Joey, and this is day 3 of the sort of purification plan that I decided to undertake between the full moon and Yule. And I said every day we would share and talk about a different thing that you could do to purify yourself, and so today is going to be about salts and herbs mainly. There may be a few other bits and pieces which go into the making of this that I will touch lightly upon, because I like having a little mixture of things involved. We'll go through a basic sort of salt recipe for a sort of purification salt mix that pretty much anyone can do really easily, and talk about the herbs. I have Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs right here as a point of reference, so I'm going to read some of the meanings from a basic book that most people either will have or can get hold of quite easily, or even find the information online if you really can't get the book for one reason or another. Just as a point of reference, just a starting place, I'm going to probably talk about what certain herbs mean to me, perhaps their history with me, perhaps why I pick them for purification purposes, and then how I utilise them and some different ways of doing that, things like that. Okie dokie. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is salt, and I have 3 different kinds of salt here that we're going to talk about. So first and foremost, the one that I use most readily, most often, I guess, is the Saxa coarse sea salt, which I buy. And if you live near the sea and you can get sea salt, and you can get sea water easily enough and go through the process of getting your own, then it's fantastic. Me, I live about as far away from the sea as I can get. Not quite as far as I used to live, but pretty far. So it's not really even an option for me. I get to go to the sea maybe once a year if I'm lucky. And it's, it's a long way. It's not exactly the best of scenarios to be carting a load of sea salt water home to deal with it. But if you can, then go for it. If you can only get hold of table salts, you can use what you've got, as far as I'm concerned, and whichever one speaks to you. Salt has a really rich history, and that's a video all onto itself. It has a rich history as a substance outside of magical realms, and it has a really rich history within realms of positive magic working. There are a lot of folklores about salt, the one about throwing salt over your left shoulder. If you spill it, it's supposed to be salt in the eye of the devil or something. And a ring of salt is to protect yourself from all evil, and salt being a purified substance that is thought to drive out all negativity. Salt is just one of those things, and I don't actually know if it's in the book. I bet it's not, which is a shame. It's not technically a herb, is it? So I bet it's not. I'll look while I ramble on. And as for me, I think it's one of those fail-safe things that you can use, really easily. You can get hold of it all the time. It is not in the book. Didn't think it would be. But it's a really great purifier. It has all that rich lore of history behind it. It's easy to get hold of. It has a wonderful energy all of its own. It enriches other things, if you think about it. We use it to enhance flavour within cooking, and to draw out things. So if you think of any use of salt, you can connect it back to that purifying element. It's wonderful. Again, I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't want this video to be 8 years long. I could probably make a video just on salt, but I think we will leave it at that because I've got 2 other kinds of salt we want to mention that I use regularly. One is, okay, Himalayan salt, pink Himalayan salt, detoxifying. An excellent detoxifier for the body. Naturally rich in calcium, magnesium and sodium. Pink grade A salts known for their high mineral content and detoxifying properties. It's basically for using in the bath, pink Himalayan salts. So if I was to make a mixture for the bath, I will get a few out and put them back in the thing because I don't actually want to make a bath mixture. Can you see them? Pink Himalayan salt. I would make a mixture of salt and pink Himalayan salt, and together they make a incredible purifying bath mixture with a few herbs thrown in. And one of the key ways in which you can purify yourself is a purifying bath. It's probably very well documented in the pagan community, and most pagans will know about the purifying bath. It's in a lot of the beginners witchcrafty Wicca books, the idea of purifying yourself before ritual, of having a bath, of going into the water, of sort of meditating within to drain all your negativity away with the bath water as you rinse yourself off. It's going into the water, filling the water with your intent and salt and purifying herbs, imbuing that with your own personal intent, and then allowing yourself to go through a spiritual change as you go through a sort of physical change as well. As you go into the bath, you get wet. It's your physical change right there. And you alter your state of mind. You are partaking in an action that purifies yourself and soul. Maybe that's not the right way of putting it. You go into your bath and purify yourself in your state of mind and your physical and spiritual aura, and you alter the state of the energy within yourself, because you are then, by that process, purifying yourself. And having a purifying bath is one of the easiest, most accessible ways of just purifying yourself so easily. And technically all you need is this. If you just have a bath with some salt in it and put your intent in it, that's all you actually need. And the final salt that I'm going to touch upon is black salt. So black salt is usually made from charcoal and salt, and is a highly protective substance. This one is black lava salt. It's volcanic. And adds another layer. That's more of a protection thing than a purifying thing, but it will work for that. And the volcanic salt has that extra element of fire in it, obviously. And for me, if you need a really punchy cleanser, you can use the black salt. And I create a Dark Goddess herbal blessing salt with the dark salt because it has that stronger, more sort of strength orientated punchier, more potent, more fiery way of stripping negativity, and you could use that as a herbal blessing salt. We're going to talk a little bit about herbal blessing salt at the end as I go through a basic recipe, which is what we're building up to. Okie dokie. So I think then we'll talk about some regular herbs. And we're going to start off with some basic ones, the ones that most people can get hold of really easily. Then we're going to talk a couple more which are a little bit more pagan specific that you might want to order through your local pagan place. Although if you can grow your own, you know, go for it. Absolutely go for it. 100%. If you can. I'm not in that position. I'm not allowed to grow things because it's not my property and the landlords live next door and they're not happy about it. There is, however, I noticed a load of rosemary growing out around the front slightly, so I'm going to go be trimming that later. I've never actually thought to look in that particular spot before, and suddenly I realise there's a huge rosemary bush. Okay, so talking of rosemary. Rosemary is available in the supermarkets. Rosemary is grown all over the place. It's a really common herb. So, rosemary from your supermarket will do. It's a really great purifier. I'm going to find the entry. Okay. Masculine sunfire is used for protection, love, lust, mental powers, exorcism, purification, healing, sleep and youth. Rosemary, when burned, emits a powerful cleansing and purifying vibration, and so is smouldered to get rid of negativity in a place, especially prior to performing magic. It is one of the oldest incenses. Let's see. A rosemary infusion is used to wash the hands before healing work in its purification thing. And leaves mixed with juniper berries are burnt in sick rooms to promote healing. Can be used as a substitute for frankincense. So, in terms of incenses and things like that, we're not going to be talking about that today. I'm going to talk about incenses in its own video, in its own smoky related video. This, for this purpose, is going to be about herbs. So rosemary is a staple, basically. It's really easily accessible. It's a really lovely smelling herb, so if you wanted to burn it, it smells lovely. And I put it in most, if not all, of my sort of herbal blessing salt recipes. So we're going to put some in. Probably going to need a bit more salt in there. So my personal feelings about rosemary. Well, I said rosemary is a staple, and that's pretty much how I feel about it. It's one of the first herbs I always think of in purifying blends. It really is a powerful cleanser. It just draws out negativity. It has a beautiful energy, a beautiful vibration. There's very interesting music outside the window for a second there. And it's so easily accessible that I would recommend it to anybody. You know, anybody beginning who was like, if you could pick one herb and really easily accessible, rosemary is probably the easiest one for beginners and in terms of people getting hold of it. So the next one I'm going to mention is sage. Now I have white sage and I have desert sage. I'm going to pop a little bit of desert sage in, but you could use garden sage, green sage. There are many types of sage. I have a long history of love with sage. My grandma used to dry sage in her kitchen, and she used to cook with it a lot, and it takes me back to that place, to a happy place, and the scent of it really does do that for me. Sage and onion stuffing is probably one of my favourite foods in the whole entire world, and therefore it emits a positive vibration for me on a personal level, as well as in a generalised purifying sense. Sage is also really easily accessible in supermarkets and things like that for cooking purposes. So if you can't grow your own, if you can't find your own in a more magical capacity and that's the only thing you have available to you, you can get it in supermarkets. The same can be said with clove. Clove is I'm not going to add cloves to this. Clove is often added to purifying bath mixtures. I'm going to read the... I didn't read the sage one. I'll read clove and then I'll read sage. Clove in the book is masculine, Jupiter fire. Again, you're noticing a lot of these herbs are masculine and fire based for that burning away negativity. Burned as an incense, attracts riches, drives away hostile and negative forces, produce spiritual vibrations and purify the area. Again, you could obviously put these into a homemade incense, but that's not what we're doing today, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Right, as I forgot sage, come here you. Masculine, Jupiter and air this time. That's about long life, wisdom. Most of the sage lore in here isn't actually about purification. The sage brush does, particularly mentioning Native American ceremonies, and bathe with sagebrush to purify yourself of all past evils and negative deeds. Also burnt to drive away malevolent forces. So there you go. So, next up, another herb that we can get quite easily within the supermarket sense or within, you know, most shop senses is bay. I'll get a bay leaf out. This bag's a bit old and tatty looking, so I'll get a bay leaf so you can see. It is a protection and purification herb par excellence and is worn as an amulet to ward off negativity and evil. Burnt or scattered during exorcism rituals, placed in the window to protect against lightning and hung up to prevent poltergeists. A sprig of bay is used to sprinkle water during purification ceremonies, and the tree planted near homes protects its inhabitants during sickness. Bay leaves mixed with sandalwood can be burned to remove curses and evil. And one of my favourite purification blends contains both bay and sandalwood, so I'm just going to tear it into pieces and add it to our basic herbal blessing. Filling it with my intent. Basically, I want you to purify me, I want you to purify my phone. And talking of sandalwood, I got sandalwood out. I'm not going to be putting that in my herbal blend because generally speaking sandalwood is better for the whole burning as far as purification is concerned. But red sandalwood has a really strong connection for me with purification, and it has a really great energy whereby it basically you tell it you need it to do this, and it has that commanding thing running through it, and it forcibly commands negativity to be gone. So red sandalwood, despite having love connections and can be used in love magic as well, it has that really great energy for that. So we're now venturing into slightly less supermarket based herbs, so these are more from pagan shops, things like that. And we shall find the entry. So the next one is Hyssop. Masculine, Jupiter, fire again, purification, protection. Is the mostly widely used purification herb in magic. It is added to baths in sachets, infused and sprinkled on objects or persons to cleanse them, and hung within the home to purge it of evil and negativity. Hyssop is a more recent addition to my magical workings. I'm going to put some in our purification blend here. This is a new recipe that I'm making up for this video, as it happens. But it works. It does. It really works. It has a beautiful energy. It has a very, I don't know. It has a similar vibe almost to the sandalwood. It really does. It just is Duracell bunny of getting rid of negativity. It just works and works and works, and keeps working and keeps getting rid and keeps purifying and keeps doing all of that good stuff. So yeah, it's wonderful for that. What else do we have? I think these are my 3 favourites now, yeah. So Vervain. Vervain is going in there. It's very green and white at the minute. I think it's going to be green and white all the way through. Yes, it is. Right, so Vervain is one of my favourite purifiers. It's one of the first herbs I ever worked with. It's actually the first feminine that we have thus far mentioned, being associated with Venus and Earth. Caridwen, Mars, Venus, Adria, Isis, Jupiter, Thor and Juno. So it technically is sacred to a mixture of male and female, which is great. Balance of those things. It's used in a whole load of different things. Love, protection, purification, peace, money, youth, chastity, sleep and healing. Priests in ancient Rome used Vervain to cleanse the altars of Jupiter. It makes me wonder if I was around in ancient Roman times. According to tradition, daughters of druids were initiated were crowned with Vervain. As with anything druidic, this has to be looked on as poetic rather than fact, with the oral traditions. Let's see what that's... Sprinkled around the premises, it chases off evil spirits. Added to exorcism incenses and sprinkling mixtures. Common ingredient within purification bath sachets. Scattered around the home as a peace bringer. And healing. Okay, the rest of it is about healing, so we'll leave that for now. But Vervain is one of those herbs that I was attracted to very, very early on. Before I had tried out a great many amounts of herbs, very early in my path, I was always working with Vervain. It's a good multi-use herb as well. Like I just mentioned, it has a lot of different uses. So if you're very limited on what herbs you can afford, Vervain's really great because you can use it for this purpose. Absolutely, it's brilliant for it. But you can also use it in a load of other ways. So another one of my favourites is Rue. Rue, masculine, Mars and fire, but is sacred to Diana and Aurelia again. Aurelia. Let's have 2 pinches of Rue. Okie dokie. Rue added to baths breaks all hexes and curses that may have been cast against you. Also added to exorcism incenses and mixtures. It is protective when hung at the door or placed in sachets. And the fresh leaves rubbed on floorboards send back any ill spells sent against you. Oh, interesting. The Romans ate Rue as a preservative against the evil eye. It's all coming up Roman today. I don't know what's going on. The plant was also carried to guard the bearer from poisons, werewolves and all manner of ills. Depends whether you're team Edward or not, I suppose. Ah, modern culture reference, oh dear. A sprig of fresh rue is used as a sprinkler to distribute salt water throughout the house. This clears it of all negativity. Isn't that a gorgeous thought? Just having salt water and a sprig of rue and going and splashing that around the house. That's wonderful. Mix fresh rue juice with morning dew, because we all have really easy access to morning dew, and sprinkle it in a circle around you while performing magical arts for protection. For some reason, toads have an aversion to rue. Good to know if you're getting rid of an ex. Right. We're descending into Joey nonsense. Eucalyptus is the final herb, and technically, according to the book, it's healing and protection. Does it not have? The leaves are carried for protection. The leaves are used in healing pockets and carried for good health. That's interesting. So I guess this isn't just me, this isn't something I have read. Right, we're having a sprinkle in it because it's mine. It's one of my favourite purifiers. I use it as an incense for purification purposes, and it's always just spoken to me as being a purification herb. I even have, for the sake of it, 2 essential oils here, and the first one, you're not going to be able to see the label because I've managed to thingy the label up, but that's eucalyptus. You can still read it on there, and then sage. And I was going to say that you can add both of a couple of drops of these, if you so wish it, to your herbal blessing ye salt thing mixture. For purification-y purposes. If you don't want to add essential oils, if you are worried that essential oils might, I don't know. If you have very, very sensitive skin and you're going to be using the herbal blessing salt in contact with skin and you don't want it to irritate your skin, then